My name's Megan Bastick. I'm a scholar at the University of Edinburgh. I work in international law, but I'm particularly interested in gender and security, feminist security studies, and the intersections, if you like, between international law and feminist change. The project I'm working on at the moment is looking in particular at how militaries are implementing the commitments of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And I'm particularly looking at how they're responding to the demand in some cases, or the request, that militaries play a role in addressing conflict-related sexual violence. We've really seen this emerge in international political discourse over the last decade, where NATO, for example, a number of influential militaries have said their militaries will be involved in preventing sexual violence in conflict, in perhaps supporting victims, in supporting justice processes. And I'm really interested in how militaries themselves understand these demands and, in fact, what is happening in militaries in response. I think this is an area that there's a lot of scope for scholarship for at least two reasons. Firstly, that although there is now a huge body of work on conflict-related sexual violence and women, peace and security, a lot of it focuses on the narratives, political narratives around women, peace and security, and not so much on what actually happens within national institutions like militaries in response. And in a complementary way, within feminist analysis of international law and law of armed conflict, again, there's been a lot of emphasis on sexual violence in conflict, a huge body of work around how rape is treated in international criminal law, for example, in prosecutions, in international tribunals of sexual violence, but not much that has really looked at what militaries in operations now are doing to perhaps implement new, broader understandings of sexual violence in conflict. So in my own research, I'm focusing on NATO as an organisation, and I'm focusing on the British military, and I'm looking very closely at what the doctrine that's been developed and updated over the last decade says about conflict-related sexual violence and women, peace and security, to try and understand how militaries themselves understand these issues. I'm observing training on these topics, and I'm doing lots of interviews with doctrine writers, trainers, military lawyers, to understand to what extent they think the Women, Peace and Security agenda is perhaps a set of binding commitments. Do they think it's just a political agenda? Is it an agenda that has meaning for them as soldiers? And how do they understand commitments made in relation to sexual violence in relation to laws of armed conflict? So, for example, if a military operation is underway and decisions are being made about whether perhaps to risk the lives of soldiers to prevent the commission of sexual violence, how are those thought processes happening, and how are doctrine and training speaking to those sort of operational decisions that are part legal and part political around conflict-related sexual violence in militaries. And I'm hoping that this analysis will really help us understand the opportunities for militaries to change in ways that will help them be more responsive to human security, more responsive to the different needs of men and women affected by conflict.